a warm welcome. My name is Adam Hems. I'm the leader of the Houston Azure user group and have been since 2016. So it's coming up on 8 years for me this year. A lot of fun. We try and meet each month. A lot of familiar faces here and some any noobs. Any noobs? At least, yeah. One noob. Welcome. Excellent. Any other noobs? Kind of a noob. I'm a noob. I don't really want to admit to being a noob. Okay, we're going to embarrass this guy right here just enough. Just kidding. Just kidding. Another noob. A warm welcome. A warm welcome. Yeah, I have some folks online as well. So, purpose of this group. This is my day job. Is I work for Microsoft and I'm a cloud architect. And so all day, every day, I talk to various Microsoft customers about Azure, all Azure stuff. That's what I do. And I love it. And I have been doing it since 2015 or so, full time in this role. It's really, really fun. I really, really like it. One thing that we don't get the opportunity to do is for the Microsoft customers to get a chance to learn from one another. They get to learn from me. That's great. I can share those experiences. And I get to learn a lot because I get to talk to lots and lots of Azure customers, see all these different customer journeys that for me, not so great for the customers who I can share, generalities and, we usually see and customers and things like that. But what is really valuable that we don't get a chance to do as part of my day job is for those Microsoft Azure customers or new or potential customers to learn from one another, the stories, the pain, the things that tripped them up, right? What didn't work, what did work, just real world stories. And that's really the purpose. One of the key purposes of this group. It's a community group. So while we meet in the evenings, it's not part. We've tried doing it during the day, but then it feels to everybody like it's like a work thing, and then always work takes priority, right? And stuff like that. So that's why we do it in the evenings. And we've tried it in various places, and so this seems to work. So Microsoft lets me use the room. No one complains, so that's good. So that's nice. They let me because I asked nicely, and so that's fine. And so we meet here, try and meet each month, try and do the second Tuesday of each month now. And we've had various presenters, and the best kind are those of members of the community, which is actually what we have tonight. We'll get to the presenters. So my favorite kind, because we really, truly all get to, including myself, get to learn the real world stories, right? Because the real world stories are the most interesting, rather than the practicalities or best practices or things like that. Just what really happened. What did you really do? What was not great? Always the best stories. So we encourage learning and discussion. I also encourage recruiters to come and show up as well, because it's a community, right? People are looking to learn. They hear, hey, Azure seems cool. Can I learn about it? Maybe I can get a job doing that. We encourage commuters. We encourage people trying to find jobs at members of the community. So we like that. That's also part of it, right? Well, this isn't very much as a sales pitch. Yeah, absolutely no sales in here. None at all whatsoever. That's not part of it. Nope, not allowed. So this is about learning. So if you're here to learn from each other, from the presenters, you're in the right place. If you're here to pitch something or be pitched, no, not so much. All right. I also want to call out my co-presenter, Kim Vaddy, who helps me out here. She helps me, and your son's here tonight, Kim, right? Yes. It's a family affair. She brings. I cannot do this alone, right? This is not a one-person job doing this. So Kim and her brings her family to help out, and so meet and greet at the door. And also Waleed, a colleague, has been helping me out today with the logistics and everything. Could not do this alone. So thank you everyone who helps. All right, I think that is more than enough from me. With that, let us roll on to our presenters this evening. You guys can turn on your mics. Yeah, just plug on in. Oh, anyone wants Wi-Fi? Then I did punch it on the board up here. You'll be able to just present. There we go. Okay, magic. You're all good, right? With that, over to you, gents. I'll let you introduce yourselves. Your mic's on, AG. Yeah, just getting lined up. Yeah.
Which one is the one that we're sharing?
This is what everyone sees. Yes.
We'll switch.
This is because we're on Teams. Yeah. Okay. You guys, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Second, right. Oh, we might need to lower it a little. a little bit lower. Yeah, yours is good, AG.
Okay.
Yeah, you can hear that. That's good. Okay, well, the 70.
Okay. What about this?
Nope.
Okay, all right. Just bear with me for a second. I'll clip it to my beard, right?
Technology's great when it works, right?
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me? Okay. All right, perfect.
The lights.
Be patient with us because we're trying to figure out how to. Okay. Yes. All right. So this is our agenda tonight. We're gonna go through a few introductions. We're going to talk about our initial state, some problems that we face. We're also going to talk about the migration to the cloud, and then we're going to get into modernization and a mindset. And finally, we're going to be talking about challenges. So our presentation is from BizTalk to Logic Apps and Integration. As Adam said, this is a real story, right? So there's going to be horror in it. There's going to be a little bit of humor, right? So on and so forth. Okay, about us. Go ahead, AG.
Yeah, I'm AG Ammanur. I'm from LyondellBasell. I work I had like 15 plus years of experience on integration, and I worked on multiple integration platforms. Implemented like global solutions from using BizTalk, Azure Integration Services, SAP PIPO. Yeah.
Everybody.
Oh,
You can read from the slides here. Yeah. Cool. Madam,
is it good?
you want them to come forward?
Yes, please. And you can read this way, not behind the computer.
You want them to pose for a photo? Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
You want us all to pose or?
No, no, no.
Tree. All right.
So I have 20 plus years of experience in Azure Integration Services and BizTalk, implementing BizTalk, SAP PIPO, SAP CPI Cloud Process Integration. I have implemented multiple applications using business-to-business integration, application-to-application integration, and also like data integration. Worked on like several global projects, connecting multiple ERP systems, manufacturing systems, and also like any COTS applications. Like we have worked on very lot of integrations at LyondellBasell. So currently my role is like I'm doing like I used to manage BizTalk migration project, and also right now I'm like managing data analytics platform as a technical principal. What do you worry?
Well, first, if you cannot hear me, let me know, right? And hey, I'm Jorge Abarca. I'm a cloud architect. Yeah, okay. I'm a cloud architect with over 15 years of experience. To be honest, it's more like my years of experience are enough for them to be drinking by themselves, right? So it's 18 years or so. I'm a leader in development efforts and promoting best practices at LyondellBasell. Um, I'm passionate about driving innovation and technology. And a little bit about myself, I I love video games when I was growing up, and that made me want to get into computer science. And well, here I am, right? I'm not developing games yet, but I'm talking about Azure. I'm talking about the cloud. I'm talking about computers. right? Talking about software, so I'm happy.
Well, I love cooking. I love gardening.
All right. Okay, so, but that's us, right? Yeah, myself. But you might be wondering, well, what is LyondellBasell, right? And if you talk to us or you read about LyondellBasell in the past, you will look at a blank sheet and go like, "Oh my God, they're the villains of the Captain Planet cartoon, right?" Because we're plastics, right? But I'll tell you that there's nothing further from the truth. Because while we are actually doing plastics, we are the first company that came up with a biodegradable plastic. We call that the Circulen product line. So we are committed to sustainability focused innovation. And we're also committed to impactful collaboration, which is why we're actually sharing with you, right? We're collaborating with everybody, right? We value people, excellence, and the future, right? So we champion people, we strive for excellence, and we shape the future. We're we're here to do that, right? Now, from that perspective, I want us to go further, right? And who we are by numbers, right? I'm not going to read this slide. You can look at it. But the most important thing is that we're a leader in the global chemical industry. And we create solutions for everyday sustainable living, right? Just talking about that particular use case that I said, a um, a plastic that is biodegradable, that's not just a dream, right? Samsonite is basically making suitcases with that particular product. So if you want to know more about us as a company, who we are, please visit www.lyb.com or follow us at LyondellBasell on LinkedIn. Now I know that Adam said that there was not going to be any, ads or commercials, but that's just it, right? We're just talking about ourselves,
Yeah.
plugging in ourselves. All right.
So I'm going to take you to our journey to uh, BizTalk, like from BizTalk to Azure Integration Services. So how we get there, right? We have multiple integration platforms. That's where we started. So we kind of LyondellBasell is a big organization. We had a lot of mergers and acquisitions. With that, we kind of acquired multiple integration platforms, and it was a technical debt as well. We had a lot of challenge in managing different integration platforms, and it's challenging to find a skill set, challenging to keep up with the support, and also keep up the technology up to date. So for that reason, we have decided move to BizTalk. So I can proudly say that I've been with Lyondell for more than 20 years. So I can share more history how we got there, right? So I was there for implementing BizTalk 2004. That's the first time we implemented BizTalk 2004. Before that, we had multiple integration platform like Mercator, Gentran, Business Connector, uh, Web Methods, TIPCO. So you have 8 different platforms, how we are going to manage all those things So we made a decision at the organization level, make a kind of one integrated platform as a, the BizTalk. We chose that BizTalk as a platform. So that really went very well. We started with BizTalk 2004, and so we also have a multiple businesses that we support. Yeah, we have a polymers, chemicals, fuels, and also within our organization we have a multiple business business groups. Like we have a manufacturing, we have a sustainability. Just what I said about sustainability, we are big on that right now. And we also had HR, HSE, procure to pay, order to cash, like produce to deliver, you name it, you have everything. Finance also is a very big one what we have. So we had 100% of integrations in using BizTalk. That was our starter, right? So once we started BizTalk, basically like uh, we started with BizTalk, and then we from 2004 we migrated to 2006 R2. From 2006 R2 to we migrated to 2010 to 2013. And every time we had to do migrations and over migrations and over migrations, right? So that's not very simple, right? So we have to do a business continuity, right? We have to support the business continuously. Do you agree with that, worry? Because without business continuity, we can do if one of my bosses used to say, hey, it's like integration is like providing electricity or plumbing, and then you don't really get everyday appreciation. But when you have you don't get water or you don't have electricity, that you really realize how important it is. Connecting the systems, it's not very easy. So with migration, with what we did is the approach we took is we had took every time we took a side by side approach, so that way we manage two platforms at the same time. So we did a phased migration, and we always kept in mind our business get a continuity, we have a limited outage and not very major outage, right? So that's a very important goal for us too. So that's our motto. So the other thing we also do, we always follow integration patterns, and we also follow very strict guidelines, with the naming conventions, how we kind of design this things, you name the schema right, you name the orchestrations, everything right. That way it's very kind of supportable for future, right? So when you keep in mind, we should not say how are we going to get the system from this, how we are going to go to the next system, right? So that's why we plan very well. So we had about 300 plus integrations in BizTalk, 300 applications. I don't know if you heard about, this is we are one of the biggest adopter of BizTalk. We had 300 applications, 500 trading partners. We had AS2, SFTP, FTP, HTTP, you name it. We had all of them, and we also had very industry standards, yeah, for B2B, we have a SIDEX, EDI, ANSI X12, and Edifact. And then we have every name, we have 850s, 855s, 810s, 862. I don't know if you know all of those, but so these are the industry standards, So when we talked about 2003, 2004, we say, we are going towards XML, the EDA is going to go away, right? No, it's still there, right? It's we still EDI, we think flat files still, you have to use EDI because we still have 20% of your integrations are through EDI, Edifact, right? So we still have API integration, everything, we have to support all of them. So now we are talking about how we got into Azure, right? Mid 2022,
Got some more questions about that. So can you tell us a little bit about the size of the, how many, did you have a lot of BizTalk servers? You had 800 applications, right?
So we had 3 BizTalk. I think now we don't have any more BizTalk. We retired everything in 2022, right? So 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So when we had 3 BizTalk servers, application servers, with load balancers. We had 2 load balance servers in the DMZ. That for the reverse proxy only. So most of our integrations are within our internal network with the 3 servers. It's highly available with the SQL as well.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question. So 3 of them are on-prem for internal integrations, and you also had some internet-facing integrations.
Yeah, no, it's all of them. 3 integrations, 3 servers for all internal and external.
Internal and external.
External.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we had a large volume of transactions as well. So our kind of organization is that the volume of transactions is not that huge, but we have a variety of transactions because we have to support multiple integrations.
One thing also I mentioned that Lyondell is the top company in Azure in transactions, by the way, in the South region. I don't know US, but it's the top. Maybe the whole United States, but
good.
Region for sure, you're the top company.
That's great to know.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank
you for sharing. So, so when we migrated, the next thing is what we did is when 2022 we got a really big issue. Hey, we are kind of stopped supporting BizTalk 2013, right? So what is the next, right? Either we have to go to BizTalk 2020 or Azure Integration Services. Microsoft was delaying, the decision, where to go, 2020 or something. That was kind of, it took a while for us to do, but we realized, cloud is the way to go, right? We don't want to go into another BizTalk and then have a technical debt, right? So we thought like we can do a hybrid approach. So we thought like maybe we can do 70% in Azure and 30% on-prem BizTalk, right? That's what initially we started. But finally, we end up doing everything in BizTalk. So what we also did is
So can you please say about your customers who are using these services from outside?
from outside.
Yes.
So I don't know if I can.
Your partner, no, not specific companies, like your partners, other,
Yeah, we have
manufacturers.
we have a 200. We have a vans, we have a connection with the vans, we have a connection with the hubs, and we have a customers, vendors, and service providers, and we have where carriers, we have a multiple integration site. They have a variety of integrations. We have 500 plus trading partners. We also have our customer extranet. It's facing internet, where the customers can come and place orders. We also have 300 plus customers on that customer extranet, where they can place orders, see order status, view invoices, all those things. All those things are connected through Azure only, right? So then we talked about thanks Walid, you mentioned about the transaction volume. We are processing monthly 30 million transactions per month, and our success rate is 99.993. So it's not very easy to get to that level. It's we had a lot of work behind, and then of course we had a excellent support from Microsoft, and then to kind of guide us coming through the patterns and how we are to do that. I think Walid also helped us out with those things, right?
I just want to mention, code is not BizTalk. This is
Azure, yeah. This is Azure Integration Services. Yeah, I think I just going to walk through that quickly on what Azure is like. When we migrated in 2022, we decided we go to migrate to Azure. At that time, we decided remove all the technical literacy, remove all the unsecured interfaces, no FTP, no HTTP, no SSL, no TLS 1.0. We removed all of them, right? So that's one of the goals we had, right? We don't want to have any unsecured platforms, and also we kind of moved whatever integrations we have been using Vista for several years, right? So what are the integrations that's not being used? We identified those, it was amazing that 23% of the integrations are not used. That's still valid, right? But we have been supporting, so we removed that. So we're going to address this more later, in the coming slides. What back to you?
Yeah. Yes. Azure, right? So us coming to you and telling you that we are 3 nines, at least to us, is something that we're really proud of, right? Keep in mind, again, it's just Azure, right? And we have a volume of 30 million transactions per month. Okay, so we're going to be talking about our initial state of problems, right? We went through kind of a summary so that you would understand more of the context and where this conversation was going. But we're going to give you a little bit of a slow burn when we start talking through all of these things. So, for example, in the beginning, there was nothing, right? And that's not quite accurate. When we said that there was nothing, it was more about there were no processes and there was no change management, right? So because there was no processes, that gave rise to a very strict change management process from our side. And that meant that the business had to manually validate everything that we did, right? So we introduced the manual validation, and processes were built around this heavy manual intervention. So it was a Wild West, and then we just turned it into Alcatraz, right?
Yeah. But sorry to interrupt, but we're not that bad at Lyondell. But with the BizTalk, right? We had a SCOM integrators, SCOM, and we have SCOM availability. We have a kind of 24/7 support and all those things as well, right?
Right. And of course, I mean, there was a reason for it, right? I'm not going to say we're turning into Alcatraz because no inmates were escaping, right? There's a reason why we had to go that way, right? Because something bad happened, and then we had to deal with it, right? And we started to share the responsibility with the business people too, because our business people became our QAs, right? So there was some responsibility from the people that were developing and the people that were actually testing. right? So that's how we began, right? Now, this took us more to avoiding change, right? You just heard AG talk about our long, tedious, and forever ongoing upgrade projects, right? We finished an upgrade project, we were back to doing another one, right? And this could potentially cause instability. That's the whole reason why we were running multiple platforms in parallel, right? We never did an in-place upgrade because to us, we didn't have the business support for that. And not only that, that will compromise our business continuity. So it was impossible, right? And also, we had to deal with challenging testing logistics because imagine now your end users are basically doing the QA. Okay, perfect, right? But we're talking not just the people that were in our company. Now, when I talk about our company, I neglected to mention that we are a global company, right? So we're talking about different partners, right, that are across the world, right? Not just us that have multiple people around the world, because we do, right? We have people in Europe, we have people in Asia, we have people here in the United States, but we also have to deal with the trading partners that are in Europe, right? That are in Asia, that are even in Australia. So that was not easy. It was really, really challenging for us. So that made us want to avoid change, right? The reason why we ended up moving on BizTalk 2013 to Azure, we had BizTalk 2020 available at that point in time, and we didn't do it, right? AG?
Yeah, we didn't do it. I think we are very clear, like, we are going to modernize and migrate, and then we did not want to go into BizTalk. That is a decision we have made.
Yeah. How did you make this decision? Because it was hard. You don't want to change, and now you have to jump.
Yes. We'll get to that.
We are
Don't
going to
worry.
get there.
Well, don't worry, we'll get there, right? Because this is the next thing, right? So migrating to the cloud, yay! All right, so let's talk about moving to the cloud, right? So there was a promise of a land where no changes would ever happen, right? The promised land where all of the services would automatically upgrade in the background. You wouldn't have to deal with that, right? No more upgrades. So to us, that was like the holy grail, right? Like we want this. So now moving to the cloud, to be honest, most of the times it's a mixture of doing it voluntarily and doing it involuntarily, right? In our case, that was what happened, right? So we did a few tests, we tried it, we liked it, we said, hey, this is good, right? But then we were told, hey, you gotta move to it, right? But we were kind of like, oh my God, not quite ready, but we had to do it, right? So we had to evaluate the cloud, and then we decided this was going to be more of an investment, right?
Yeah, the only thing is Microsoft tricked us to move to ISC and then again bring back ISC. Right?
That's
okay.
right. They didn't let us out until we actually moved to Azure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So 2 years later, we came out.
Yeah. So then we got all the meetings. So thanks, Microsoft.
What made you choose the Azure? Like there are like
Yes.
lot of people over there, like
Yeah.
AWS and all this.
Yeah, we did a lot of assessments, right, about that. Like, I can share some of that, like, not very closely. We evaluated, like, maybe 10 different platforms, and then in the market, what's available. Like, when we are making this kind of big decisions, right, for the long term, we really need to, that's a very good question, right? So we really need to understand, like, are we making the right decision, right? We kind of zeroed in about 10 integration platforms, and then we came shortlisted about 3. And then out of 3, like, we chose Azure as a primary platform that it's going to, stay with Lyondell for, because we are a Microsoft shop. Like, we have a lot of resources who knows .NET and then worked on the .NET, and also we had a kind of agreement with Microsoft. Like, we had a enterprise level agreement. So those and all will help. And there are commercials. I don't want to get into that, but there are also some commercial reasons, like, why we couldn't choose some other platforms. That's another thing.
Yeah, but let's put it this way, and I'll go easy on this. Part of the reason was because you saw how careful we are, right? We're running multiple systems, which not a lot of people want to do, right? From our perspective, we wanted to have an easy way out, right? We have Microsoft as our partner, right? We had them there for us for them to help us, and then we said, okay, we're going to have an exit strategy. It will be easier for us to back out of Azure than if we got another product, right? So from that was one of the reasons why we decided to go with Azure.
Yeah, thanks, Jorge. So I'd like to take you how we did that integration journey. Whatever you are seeing in the pictures, that we put the numbers in there, but those are all old, 2 years old. We have kind of uh, grown beyond this right now. It's a 2 years old. We want to keep that the same level how we started. So that's why we kept it that way. So when we evaluated with the migration, we thought can we do a lift and shift, or we can do some modernization, right? We chose to modernization is the way to go, and then let's do modernize instead of just lift and shift. So our we have you have seen, right? We have 300 plus integrations, right? We have how many 400 maps or something, right? 470 400 and maps, like 466 or something. 476 maps, right? So what are you going to do all this? Some of the maps, I remember building for 3-4 months, right? One transformation, right? It's not very easy. So what we did is we want to reuse all the maps, right? Whatever transformations we did.
Map.
The transformation, when we are having a transforming one message type to another message type, and that way, the trading partner might be using, for example, we'll be receiving from SAP IDOC format or flat file or something, but the trading partner would need in the EDI format. So how do you do that? You have to transform from one message type to another message type. And also we have to use some business logics, sometimes we have to do the conversions of the unit of measure from SAP unit of measure to ISO unit of measure, things like that, right? So these are simple ones. I said, there are a lot of other things as well, it's a little bit complex, but like I mentioned, I always want to keep the integration simple. So most of the business logic, we move it to the .NET area or something there where we can do automated testing and things like that, right? So you have a question?
I have a question. Why did you think about doing this in pro development? To use like .NET or something else to write this in like an API instead of using this? And did you evaluate when you were jumping out and moving to Azure?
Yes, part of.
And why did not do that? Why did you choose? Did you think that Logic Apps was a serious environment for what you're trying to do? Because you're reaching like 30 million. So
Logic Apps,
you write APIs for this.
Logic Apps, if we take most of our Logic Apps are very lightweight, right? So the Logic Apps will be taking doing the workflow, like orchestrations, right? But some of the complexities we move into Azure functions.
Yes.
And then some of the things that's the reason why we are do this. We want to keep that the workflow simple. And then just a transformation, that way it's easier to support, right? So that.
Why did you decide on a design way, like using Logic Apps instead of pro coding solution?
No, the Logic App is very for user friendly first, and then supportability, right? When you're able to you have a lot of tools available to view the number of transactions. You can see where the messages are, how the messages before transformation, after transformations. These are all coming out of the box from Azure, right? That connectors also, if we have so many connectors available. So we're going to talk about all the connectors as well, right? Those are the things. And then there's also we have to. I told you already about how many business areas we support, right? We have to have a massive coordination within within the organization, with outside the organization, with the trading partners, with vendors. It's very complex, and we also, when we did that, we moved also to the API API architecture with enhanced security, right? So what we did is we put the API in the front end, and then all the trading partners will send, even the ADI we accept through API or through AS2, right? And then that way it's we have a web application firewall before that, and then we have to come into the gateway, and then so we have multiple layers of security. before it get into our Logic App, right? Logic App also, we wanted to have a very secured environment, right? Because we have some financial transactions going through that, right? So we chose, like, we did not choose the consumption Logic Apps in Azure, right? We went through the ISC, like we host our own VNet integration with us 4 subnets, like, this our own area, right? It's kind of secured that way, right? And we automated 100% of our integration, development, and deployments through DevOps, right? You have seen, like, how many pipelines we have, how many build pipelines, how many receive pipelines, like, everything is automated. And we simplified the support process, right, by automating, like, with the custom dashboards, right? So for kudos to Microsoft, like, for making the API management upgrade very simple, right? We also upgraded from APIM with STV1 to STV2. That was very, very quick and easy. So, like, with we cannot say the same thing with ISC to AC, right? That's another conversation we're going to have, right? So when we talked about, I already mentioned about, like, we have a API management, we have Azure Logic Apps, we have function apps, we had a service bus. You are using the public permission pub sub scenarios. Like, we have a service bus, we have a topics and queues, and also we have an integration account where we manage our schemas, all our maps, and everything is in the integration account. And we also have, like, I think yeah, all the key vaults, right? We use a key vault where we store our keys, and we don't really store anything in the, like, parameter files or anything like that. Everything is within the key vault. And we, with the GitHub advanced security, like, when we turned on, it also does the code scanning, right? If you have any keys, like, in the kind of code, it's going to identify for you, right? So it's a very, like, even with the API management, we integrated with the key vault, with the Logic Apps or function apps. Everything is tightly integrated with the key vault, so everything is secured. So you want to add anything here, Warren?
Yes, just to add to Walid's comment, what I would say is that despite the fact that we have an architecture that we're proud of, this is not a universal architecture, right? We asked Microsoft as well, hey, give us a reference architecture on how we're going to do this. But the most important part to realize is that this doesn't apply to everybody. Our main focus when we decided that we were going to be doing Logic Apps versus anything else was maintainability, right? And that depends on the skills of your team. Our skill set of the team of integration, they were not that versed in C# development, right? So they were more versed on workflows, right? Which actually translated very well to Logic Apps, right? However, when we were doing our POCs, we found out that we could actually write code in APIM, right? You can actually have the whole thing in APIM if you wanted to, right? But we had to make some decisions there.
We don't want it.
We want, of course. But here's the thing, right? It's not maintainable, right? You cannot maintain something that was written in APIM. There's no way. We tried. You can try it, but trust us, it doesn't work, right? So from that perspective, we also realize that things that are too complex to be inside of Logic Apps, we create our pseudo connectors by creating function apps, because that way we will be able to automate our tests, right? And we were able to reuse all of this logic. Again, this is not universal, and you have to look at the composition of your team, what you're actually doing, in order for you to find what is the best for you. But this is what we did ourselves.
Yeah, thanks, Rory, for that. So
can you please, you mentioned connectors. Can you explain to everybody what is connectors and why it's important?
Oh, okay. Do you want to do that, AG, or do you want to do? Okay, go.
We have a lot of built-in connectors, and we also have Azure connectors, right? So if you want to connect from Azure, like, Logic App to any external system, so there are some built-in connectors available. Like, for example, if you want to connect to SQL, you want to connect to SAP, you want to connect to API management, everything is a connector is available. That's most of the connectors. So, like, for the EDI, we have a connector. For service bus, we have a connector. So everything is kind of a built-in connector. It's pre-delivered to you. So all you have to do is to drag and drop, use it, right? So we really like all those things, right? Except that the AAC migration we don't like. So
yes. Oh, the other thing that you meant, that I remember that you mentioned when we were going to Logic Apps versus writing code, because we had this conversation too, right? One of the things was that you were able to monitor better when you were looking at the workflow.
We are good looking at the workflow for supportability, right? For like, we have a support team, like, offshore support team, like, 24/7. We already automated alerts. We're going to cover that, right? We have automated alerts and then 24/7 support. We don't really rely on anybody to manually send alerts. The alerts automatically goes to the users directly. And on top of it, we also support, that way we already communicated and then we work on the issue, right? So that's why we are able to identify, every month we go through the transactions, which transactions we have a higher volume of failure, like why do we have this failure? It's a data issue, or where do we go address? We do all of those things. So that's why we are able to succeed that with 99 point.
And I saw the question, Adam. It's about unit testing the logic apps, right?
Yeah. So we do have a question online, but I have one. You keep mentioning Logic Apps. I'm not sure I know what a Logic App is.
Okay, all right. So they want to go over that.
What a Logic App is? You've used
Well,
those in Azure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
we
unit testing of
we
whatever those things.
made an assumption here, right? So we thought that the people that were coming to the presentation actually were in the middle of trying to move away from the ISE into the ASE. So we jumped into thinking that you guys knew what logic apps are.
Not
But-
necessarily.
But not necessarily, that's
We have
correct.
all
So we're going to go to
Yeah.
You're a student.
Okay.
are you doing
So
here?
Logic App. Okay. Logic App is a workflow. Like for example, think about a workflow. Like you are receiving something, you are sending to somewhere, right? You wanted to do some kind of business logic in between. So I don't know if you know BizTalk. BizTalk, we call it as orchestration, right? You have to orchestrate a message we receive and to send, it has to go to multiple transformations, right? You could be doing the transformation, you could do the lookup, or you could do some business logic. You want to log something. Hey, I received it from this system, system A, and then I log it, and then I send it to system B, log it. That way we can see in the dashboard, from system A to system B, the message reached or not. So that way, when the Logic App, it provides you the flow, right? It provides you what is the message you received. You can see the content of the message. What is the message you sent? You can see the content of the message. You can all see all those things. These are all 90 days. So it's all available for you to view, right? After 90 days, that's automatically archived.
Right, and we'll get to you. Warren. That's I was gonna go over that. So if you guys want to, because you have never seen a workflow in your life, right? Think about it this way: you have a UI where you basically can go ahead and say, "Hey, I'm going to start with a trigger." Right? It could be something that is going to be coming from an HTTP request. It could be something that is going to be on a file share, right? Something that was added to the file share. Whatever it is, it's going to be a trigger that is going to start that workflow. After that, through your UI, you can go ahead and add logic and then say, hey, based on this, I want to do this. If not, I want to do this other thing, right? So you're basically having a logical branching there for you to be able to do things there. You can also have loops, right? And you can go ahead and start calling certain actions. That's what we talk about, the connectors, right? So for example, if you want to insert something in SQL, there's a SQL connector that allows you to connect to SQL. And basically you say, this is the SQL statement that is going to go there, right? When we started talking about secrets, hey, we're going to be connecting to SQL. How do you connect to SQL, right? Are you going to hard code the credentials there? No, you don't. You use a key vault, right? Where you're basically going to have those secrets, right? Connecting to the key vault, that itself is a connector, right? And when we start talking about doing function apps is also a connector that you can use. And that is what we use as a hook to be able to create custom logic that we could actually test. Does that help? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Sorry, we are
So
running out of
instead
time.
of writing code to do something, you just drag and
Visually, right? Visually drag and drop, right? It's kind of a user-friendly drag and drop tool. And then it writes template or ARM template, like you also call
Okay.
in
The
the
developer is not needed to do that. You just drag and drop. Okay.
Yeah. But that's not always true.
But developer is needed to create the thing.
No,
Yeah.
no. There is some stuff.
That's Microsoft does it, right? It's like a Word or something, right? You have the tool already available, you drag and drop. But for our scenario, we need a developer, right? Because we cannot really use the go on the portal and develop something and deploy it. We cannot do that. We have to go through the code, using the DevOps process with the ARM template and then go through the process of deployments and all that. So,
Right.
so I think we need to move on.
Yeah, we'll move
One
on.
thing I would like to add before we move on, right? One thing is it's very important is when you migrate anything, think about what are the patterns you have, right?
Mhm.
So you need to really understand, when we did this, we have a 480 integrations, right? So we did not just go, to build everything, right? So what are the patterns we have, right? We have only 12 patterns. So everything within to fit in those 12, 13 patterns, right? So if it goes beyond that, like if anything outside the pattern, we try to fit into the pattern. If not, go and find out, add a new pattern, right? Maybe this might be new use case. We'll get it, right? So we always go go through the standard approach, think long term, create a pattern, and then we publish that. We have we receive a message and then do something, right? That's the only that's inbound asynchronous, right? We just receive, just done with that, right? And then if it's the receive, the sender wanted to receive something back, that's a synchronous message. I'm sending you an order, and then once you process the order, give me the order number. That's a synchronous message. So this is we have a asynchronous pattern. We have a synchronous pattern. We have a two-way. We have a multi-way, three-way patterns. We have multiple patterns, but all these integrations we can fit into a set number of patterns. It's easy to support, easy to manage for future.
Correct. I'm not gonna add something quick, but just very, very quick. If something doesn't fit your patterns, you evaluate it, right? And maybe you have to redo it so that it fits your patterns, or as you said, you create a new pattern instead of.
The question is, do you guys do unit testing?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, not logic apps.
All right. So let me just go over that real quick. Part of the reason why we were doing things on APM and all that, as I told you, was that we realized that we needed to do unit tests for certain things. And our custom code, which is the pseudo connectors that we discussed, those are the ones that we put inside of function apps in order for us to be able to do automated testing. Now, Microsoft does have a way for you to basically go to a connector and say, I'm going to be injecting data into this particular connector, so you can actually test it. However, whenever you publish the Logic app, that's going to be published with that particular connector set to that, right? So from that perspective, when we started evaluating how we could potentially have a unit test on that, it was hard for us to get into that. Microsoft is working on helping us automate some of this tests, and they're working on a testing framework.
Yes.
But at this point in time, we're not doing unit tests on the.
No, we have a custom built unit tests available. That's not a standard process. We have to confirm ourselves right now for are we sending the right code, things like that. So we have to really, for critical processes, right? We create our own test cases, and then we create our automated testers. Those are all manually created another application, another logic app like that, right? It's not maybe Microsoft is going to come back with a testing framework. I think they are working on it. I know.
But we also talked about different strategies for unit testing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
By having HTTP triggers, and on top of that,
yes.
That's what we are doing right now.
There's strategies that we could discuss related to unit testing, but that's a whole separate thing, right? What I would say though is that you basically have to execute your logic app, right? So a lot of the things that we consider was dynamically generating a logic app, then manipulating the logic app itself, so that we'll be doing unit test on that. We didn't follow that because it was going to be a bit of we didn't have time for that.
Yeah. So I'll cover the first part of the migration context. When we did the migration, right? So
there's a follow-up question, AG, from BizTalk rules is the online
business rules. I think we are going to cover that.
We're going to cover that.
Business rules
That's the name of the user. So
Yeah.
BizTalk rules also asks if you have stateful logic apps. Are your logic apps stateful or stateless?
Yeah, we try not to have stateful logic apps. No.
So when on the migration context, right, we started with a lot of unknowns, right? So it's very important for us to do a POC. We always don't trust Microsoft and just we want to see what they're saying is going to work or not, right? And like it or not, we find a lot of issues. And then when we did the POC, we identified a lot of things, right? It's not that just Microsoft, our environment, how we architect the solution, right? So we might have a lot of security rules within our environment, within our corporate environment, right? So we are not allowing anybody to come in, right? Sometimes we had issue. They open a firewall in non-production, but they close everything in production. So it's very hard. That's why everything you do POC, you do test scenarios, complex scenarios, you really allocate enough time for that. And then we also do the stress test with certain connectors, right? So I can talk about one of the connectors we had with the SAP connectors. We had a lot of performance issues, right? When we kind of migrated, when we were able to identify in the non-production itself, right? But we have to find a workaround, do that with tight timelines you have and things like that. Right now, you have a business continuity support, right? You need to ensure that you do a stress test. You do that, it's not that the tool Microsoft might have tested with all these things. It doesn't matter, right? In your environment, it may not work. You might have some IP address issue for your firewall WAF issue or some internal network connection issue, right? It could be anything, right? So we can identify, document this. When you go to production, you can validate those things ahead of time. That way, when we have go to production, what we do is we do validation, right? Production validation, business test validation, and also we have a proper backup plan, right? If this doesn't goes well, we go back to the old environment, right? That's kind of, we always keep parallel environment. That's kind of a motto we have, right? We have to have a business continuity, right? And you'll be amazed, most of our go lives are during the day, during the business hours. We don't do weekends, right? Weekends, you do have a support availability issue, you have a business availability issue. They'll be kind of, you move something to production, then you come, they'll scream on Monday morning, and then you'll have a bad Monday, right? So we really do that, during the week, during the business hours, and then we have been very successful with that.
That's right. One last thing, I saw somebody popping up a question. We try to use built-in connectors ourselves because most of the things that we did were in the ISE, and just why.
What's an ISC? You got
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Don't worry.
ISC.
Don't worry. We'll get there.
So ISC is the integration services environment, I earlier mentioned, right? So it is a secured environment for our own corporate organization, where we host within our VNet virtual network with 4 subnets. It's so that it's not publicly available to everybody. It's going to be within our we have within cloud, we have our own space.
So there were certain global challenges that we had to talk to. And by the way, you saw some of the context. We spoke most about that, a little bit before. But here's one of the things that we had to take into account. Multi-region interfaces require global teams. It sounds very, very, straightforward, but it's true, right? So we need to deal with global teams. And that means that sometimes your trading partners are not going to be available, right? The trading partners might not be aligned when you're migrating. There's a lack of uniform capabilities among them. So that means that some of them might be well versed in doing development. Some of them might be pop and mom shops that have no idea how to do any development at all, right? And same goes with the testing capability. Some of them, they don't even have a testing environment. So you have to take that in account. And we also had to deal with some business constraints that made end-to-end testing impossible in some cases. And we had to deal with the fact that we don't have strategies for deprecation, right? So you cannot just go to a business partner or a customer and say, hey, you know what, that interface that we put out there, we're going to deprecate it in 2 years, right? So you better move to this. So to us, that was one of the challenges that we had to face.
Yeah, obviously, I think we talked about multi-region, Lyondell is a global company, right? We have multiple regions. We have businesses in Europe, Asia, and also North America, right? So we have to support all these multiple regions. Sometimes one interface might be supporting multiple regions. So we need to plan out, we have to really plan very well, how are we going to support multiple regions, right? That's a very key thing.
Now, we'll talk about the IIS.
Yeah, yes.
Azure Integration Services challenges. And again, we made an assumption here, thinking that you guys were familiar with the terminology of Azure Integration Services. Azure Integration Services is not an icon you're going to find anywhere, right? If you go and download the architecture icons, it's not there.
So we have it here, right? So
yeah, we have it here. So this is a collection of services of Microsoft, right? That's going to include API management, Logic Apps, function apps, the event grid, service bus, and data factory as well, right? So that's when we're talking about AIS, this is it.
Yeah, it's too easily follow. I created my own logo there.
Yes, that's right. There was no icons, so we had to go ahead and create one of our own. Now, some of the challenges that we have when we moved to the AIS were figuring out our app service plan distribution. Also, we had to deal with. Oh yes, go ahead.
Yeah, with the popping, I think.
Sorry, is this better?
It's like World War One back here.
Sorry about that. Is this?
Put it on you're blowing in the mic. I think Fred's doing it. Pin that on. You won't be needed.
Wind filter.
So I'll continue from here. So we have an app service plan distribution, right?
Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to blow in your ears. So one of the things that we had to deal with was with the network limits, right? And this was more about it was more of a knowledge gap, right? Where we needed to know what the network features were, right? Otherwise, we hit something like a snap port exhaustion, right? So there's a limit of how many ports you can have open. And I'm not going to get deep into that, but that's something that we had to address ourselves, right? Also, we had to deal with knowledge gaps on monitoring, right? And also feature gaps, because when we started doing our function apps and we started coming up with our app service plans, we did them on Linux, right? And at that point in time, there were certain features that were missing related to monitoring on Linux app service plans. We also had to deal with continuous .NET updates, right? So remember how we tried to go away from, constant updates? Yeah, well, here it is, right? We also had to deal with API versioning, right? And API versioning our own APIs, right, that we're going to be putting out there. And logic app versions. So you're going to hear about consumption logic apps versus standard logic apps. Which one was the best? We decided to go with the ISE because that gave us network isolation. So nobody will be able to get into our logic apps physically, right, from the network.
Yeah, and also when we went that time, the Logic App standard was not very
yes,
mature.
Yes, they didn't have it at that point. They were just starting with Logic App standard.
Yeah.
The last thing is that we had to deal with multiple support tickets, so we constantly were engaging Microsoft on some of these things.
Yeah. So a couple of minutes on the application service plan distribution, right? So what I would like to add is like when we went live and things like that, we have a lot of knowledge gap within our environment right now. We are kind of throwing all the function apps, app services into a single app service plan. And the memory was going up to 85%, 90%. And also we had a lot of snap port exhaustions, right? So we did not really have a very good idea about how to go about it, right? So then we had to work with Microsoft solution architects, to find out how we can distribute this application services and the function apps to multiple app service plans to support it better. And also we enabled snap port exhaustions that with the service endpoints, right? So that way it's not going through the internet, it's going through your own network. So we had to turn on this snap port,
the service endpoints on your VNet and the subnet. So then we got the ISE challenges, right? The IC challenges. So I remember how we talked about this integration service environment, right? Awesome service environment. So we had some issues with slow platform deployments. It would take about 3 hours to deploy or 3 hours to make a change to it. There were complex secure configurations on our infrastructure as code. They were tough and complete. It was tough for us to completely automate the platform automation and doing deployments, right? If you're trying to do it now and it's completely automatable, that's thing to us. We talked to Microsoft and we gave some feedback that.
But don't do that.
But don't do it.
Listen to it. Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Right?
Because ISE is going to go away August 2024. So no new development on nobody. I think nobody's going to implement it. It's not recommended.
You're not even.
Oh, you're gonna create.
Good.
That's even better.
You're protected, guys. You're good.
Yeah,
so from the last other thing that we talked about a little bit earlier were connector limitations, right? And there was they were missing BizTalk, some BizTalk components that were missing, such as the business rules engine, the BRE, that we had to develop our own to be able to do that because our integrations were a little bit simple, right? We didn't have to do as much on that. Not that we would recommend every single one of you to go ahead and roll out your own, but we had to. Yes.
What's slow mean in slow platform deployments?
The slow platform deployments, okay, infrastructure as code for us to do an ISE deployment, that took 3 hours. And if you needed to go ahead and make changes to your infrastructure and deploy it, that took 3 hours. So if Microsoft needed you to do something, a deployment for them to check if there was an issue on your ISE, 3 hours.
Yeah. So basically, it's not recommended. Basically, don't it recommended to use always a infrastructure as a code for creating the resources in Azure. So that way it's easily portable to other environments, like, easily supportable. So right now we are using a Terraform for creating this IS infrastructure as a code. And there's also Bicep also is available. Microsoft will say, use Bicep, but use Terraform, but it creates, it keeps the state for you. And then if you are making any deployments, like, we don't have to go to CMO again. Hey, approve everything again, right? So it's going to change the state only, right? That's another good thing. And also with, I would like to add one on the BRE, right? Let me finish that the BRE part. The BRE, like, it's a BRE is a business rules engine. BizTalk out of the box, it comes with a business rules engine where you can go and, like, with the UI, you can create your own business rules and then call the business rules from the orchestration. And then that way that you can do the translations, or you can do the workflow with the business rules also, right? But luckily we kept our business rules very light. We used only for kind of lookups. So that way, like, we are able to easily move to, like, different solution, because Azure doesn't come up with out of the box BRE, right? So there is no migration path from business rules engine BizTalk to Azure integration services. That's why we have to create our own solutions, or you can run your business rules engine in a virtual machine and then call that. So we don't want to do all of that. So we create our own solution function app, and then we simplified that. And
yeah, and we were having some issues with high availability and disaster recovery.
Absolutely, yeah, I think that's a big thing, right? Why we have to go to ASC, right? And then that's also even Microsoft also identified that is a big issue, right? So the organizations like Lyondell, like, we needed a highly available and with a DR system, like what happens if something happens to this zone, and then what if some how do we going to recover? So we have to really kind of have a plan for that, right? So with when we next generation, like next migration, we're going to go to the ASC, right? Application services environment that comes with all of them built in, right? You can kind of configure all of those high availability and.
That's right. Our architecture looks way simpler when we are doing the DR and business continuity using the ASC. One thing that came up from the issues that we're having is that a takeaway, right? Solutions are fundamental, but perception is very, very important. So one issue that we have is more memorable than a successful period. It doesn't matter if we had 6 months without any downtime, your users are going to remember that one time where it was down for 3 hours, even if that is within your SLA.
Yeah, thanks for that big. See, if I already mentioned to you about, right, we are talking about we are doing the plumbing and electricity business, right? So when you're going to, something goes wrong, you're going to scream, right? So it doesn't matter if you're going to have a 99.993, we have a 30 million transaction, we have only 1,500 fail, right? It doesn't matter. If the one of the failure is payments, 25 million, double payment, you're done.
I mean, unless it's to me, right? If it's double payments to me, that's fine.
You have to be really careful.
$170 million payment.
Yeah, I know.
The CEO will know about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we don't want to be visible in a wrong way, right? So
that's right. That's
we
right.
Really kind of focus on that. So that's why we need to really keep the alerts and monitoring very safe. And then when we migrate these kind of enterprise scale solutions, we have to be careful. Hey, how we are kind of architecting the solution.
Correct. So one last thing here about achieving visibility is that we told you about our 3 nines, right? So show reliability and performance through metrics. This really helps your users to understand just how much you're actually doing. And that way you get support.
Yeah, great.
Now, here's the next thing, right? Automation rollout, right? So how did you deliver on the cloud's promise, right? It's by using automation. We talked about it, quite a bit, right? Automate your deployments through pipelines. This is really, really important. And I know that I pushed that on the very first and people didn't like it, but it has been quite a bit successful.
So how are we doing on time, Adam?
Yeah, thanks for that. Fine.
Okay. So we also incorporated testing and automated checks in our pipelines, which is something that AG was talking about, right? So automation is extremely important. Use it. If you want to think about it this way, the cloud is actually built for you to automate. You can do infrastructure as code. You can code, right? You can just deploy anything just by using an API, right? So why wouldn't you actually use automation to help you out, right? So automation rollout, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, exactly. And also with that, along with the testing, right? So none of our developers have access to production. Okay. So they have only like, CMO team has access, and then some of the AMS developers have access, right? So AMS support. So they cannot do anything like all the automated, like, when they do the pipeline, it goes through approval process, and then it has to go through certain channels. They validate if this is approved to go to the next production. So that's where the approval happens at the second level. And then once they approve, it goes to production. So the developers can view it, but they cannot touch anything, change anything.
Yes, this has been very successful with us.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about the modernization and mindset shift that we went through. So, all right, remember how we told you that we moved to the ISE, right? We moved to the cloud, right? So let's be honest. Migrations require business support. You're not going to be doing a migration on your own. You can't, right? Now, drumming support in order for you to go through a migration sometimes requires some proper messaging, right? Most of our users are not technical. They don't understand the vicissitudes of us going through the technical stuff, right? So in our case, we call it the modernization project. Now, one thing that happened was that once that we finished our modernization project, we went to the promised land of never having to upgrade again, never having to do anything again, no more migrations, right? That's when the ISC deprecation notice hit us, right after we migrated.
Yeah. So thanks to Microsoft, I had to go to the safe house because of it. I cannot do anything. Everybody's coming here. Why we just did the migration? Why you are doing another migration, right? So it doesn't matter. Hey, we are doing the business highly available disaster recovery. They don't really care, right? So why we are doing this, right? So we did the test. I think we might finish the migration. Why do you want to do it again, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
it was hard for us to sell that, right? Saying that we had to modernize the modernizing project, right? Remodernization. So this is how it hit us, right? When they had the ISC retirement news came to us, this is the ISC retirement by Microsoft, right? The alternate title of this is ice cream. Right. That was my reaction when it happened. What about you, AG? How did you feel when we were told?
Oh my God, I already mentioned this is you don't want to hear it. So
Can I explain?
I mean, don't get me wrong.
yeah, I know.
Don't get me wrong. There's reasons and there's good reasons why the
they're all
ISC
good reasons. Yeah.
No, it's okay. But just to everybody understand what happened. Azure is growing, and it's becoming bigger and better and more resilient. We have an old architecture in Azure that we need to get rid of and go to the new one, which is more resilient and so redundant. And ICE was built on the
previous architecture. Yes.
Yes, and we have to move. That's it. We have to cut it.
Yes, there's
and this has nothing to do with Logic Apps, by the way. It's on the top level of Azure. They said we need to remove old hardware. Now, who was affected? The Logic Apps team were creating a new Logic Apps standard, and they were not ready for this move because they wanted to provide an easy button to migrate automatically, but they got hit like everybody.
Yes, everybody.
Just do
it. By the way, we're not pointing fingers here, right? We're not.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead. Yes.
So if you want to do that, why don't you just update other than giving the retirement of IS?
Because all the old hardware will cost us millions. We need to move. We have competition, cloud outside. We don't have limited space. We cannot just snap our fingers and have a data center there. You have to remove old hardware, put a new one to be competitive. Everybody wants a faster CPU, faster hardware. Everybody demanding. Before it was okay. Now it's not.
Yes.
In addition to that, right, the ISC is not easy to set up IA availability and disaster recovery. That's the biggest reason.
Right? So you can have maximum only one data center. You maximum 10 instances. That's it.
Yeah.
The new one,
we have auto scale set up 3 instances to 5 instances.
Correct. Remember how we said that with the ASC, our architecture was simplified.
Yeah.
DR was way easier. So that's what WoW is basically mentioning.
So another secret about ISC, it's a fixed cost.
Yes. Now keep in mind though, that
That's
this was more of our experience, right? Because it was more of a timing issue, right?
Yeah.
If this hadn't happened, right at the time that we migrated, things would have been a little bit different, right? Now, as I said, Microsoft has very good reasons of why they want to move away from the ISE, and as a matter of fact, we benefit from some of those reasons from an architectural standpoint. Because if you ask me to go ahead and create the architecture of how we're going to be doing the disaster recovery for the ISE, that was going to be extremely complicated.
So even the cloud has technical debt.
Even the cloud has technical debt. That's right. Yes.
More questions?
So between all those migrations, have you lost any functionality or downtime was excessive or any?
No. So no, that's something that it was a non-starter.
Yeah. Yeah, actually I can take that. So I mentioned about our complexities of our businesses, right? So it's very impossible for us to bring down, even our SAP ERP system, right, on the back end, they have a monthly maintenance and quarterly maintenance, things like that. They can go down, half a day, or one day, right? But Azure, we cannot, even BizTalk, we cannot go down like that, right? So it has to, we keep collecting the messages, queuing up, and when our backend system is up, we just process it, right? So it's going to be very planned upgrades. And after we got with Azure, we didn't have any big downtime except one time we had a SQL issue that cost us about 5 hours downtime. And also think about it, when we have a 5 hours downtime, it's not for just 5 hours, right? After that, we have to work 12 to 15 hours to kind of reconcile the transactions to ensure that we are not making any duplicates and all. It's a very complex, right? So to answer your question, we really very careful when we are architecting these solutions, right? We have a minimum downtime.
Correct. And anything that was missing there, we had to add it ourselves. So this is how it looked like when we started migrating to the ASE. Right? If you look at this, the only thing that we changed there was the box of the ASE, which is right next to
the second box orchestration and workflow, right? In the if you compare the ISE, we changed to application services environment. So I would maybe Microsoft would have been worked on that, hey, we just with the APIM upgrade, with STV2. It is so simple. It took 15 minutes for us to upgrade all the API, the entire environment, right? It's we had to make one URL change. We're done, one IP address change, right? Maybe 10 minutes downtime. I think it's not very big, right? We can do one Sunday morning after we're done.
Right.
But with this one, I think there are complexities around this, right? I'm going to explain you what are the complexities, right? So the August 31st, 2024 is the end of life for the ISE, right? Integration Services Environment, where we hosted all the logic apps. Remember, we said we have a 400 logic apps hosted, which it's grown beyond that. We have 500 plus logic apps. And with ISE, we also have a limitations with the number of logic app, right? We can have 1,000 logic app limit. So first, when we started, we had non-production and dev, we had one subscription. And then production, we had a separate subscription. We want to save cost on ISE, right? We want to skew more on the ISE in one environment, right? We couldn't do that because with 1,000 logic app limits, we easily hit that, in non-production, we close to 900. Then we decided to have a separate environment for dev so that we separate out, right? And after that, Microsoft supported we can go up to, that's a soft limit. We can go up to 2,000 logic apps, right? I think that's what we had.
But as well, it said that was not tenable, right? Because we approached that, and that's what we had to write our own. We had to create our own custom dashboards and things like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and also with the ISE, also with log analytics, monitoring, we had multiple issues, right? It's not supportable. Log analytics still high performance issue because of the transaction volume, high volume. The dashboard, it won't even come up for 24 hours. So it will work only for last 30 minutes, right? Or last 15 minutes, because the volume of transaction grows and grows, and then it cannot monitor. If you have a 20 million transactions, it needs down, right? So it doesn't work. So what we did is we created our own custom Azure dashboards. So that's where we are able to support with the support teams and all. They used our custom dashboards, and then with the customer queries, and then we are able to really support. It's nicely put. How many failures we have, everything, right? There are also some tools available, but without those and all did not work for us, right? So we are able to do everything. We are also thinking about automated reprocessing here. We have long list of things, right? What we want to do is a self-healing integration system is what we are going for. What that means is like, when it fails, it automatically recovers the failure and then move forward, right?
One thing that Walid said that is very important, the Logic, because we're not throwing the Logic Apps team under the bus. As a matter of fact, we have worked closely with them, and we're working to try to get a simple and seamless migration for us. Proof of that is that Wagner, which kudos to him, by the way, he has a migration tool that allows us to migrate with 70% of the code, and then 30% is something that we actually do. That is really impressive and is really, really helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Jorge, for that. I think so. We like Jorge mentioned, right? And we had to work with Microsoft to test this tool with the multiple connectors. Obviously, like we did a lot of POCs. We did the in-depth testing, right? So we found a lot of issues, and then again, thanks to Microsoft Dev for resolving all those on time, and then we are able to export the logic apps. Even if you have a nested logic apps, you can select and export. And then, so the logic app standard is like, a little different. Like, I don't know if you know BizTalk. BizTalk, we can have one application, you have multiple orchestrations, right? I don't know if, I'm sorry if people are new to logic apps, right? So logic app, consumption logic app is a single workflow, right? One workflow, one logic app. So if you have a logic app standard, you can have multiple workflows, right? So right now, for example, for order processing, I have to have 3 orchestrations, like one we receive the order, one order change, one order response, right? We have 3 different orchestrations. I can put all those into one logic app in the logic app standard. But in the logic app consumption, it has to be 3 different logic apps. So what we did is we kind of grouped those into one resource group, and then we put all the logic apps that way it's all still and combined as a one application. However, like with the with the logic app standard, we can do that. And like what I mentioned, like with the export tool available, we are able to export 30% of the 70% of the code, and then we had to do 30% manual, right? When we like any connections or any integration account setups, all those things are like in a manual. And also with IAC logic app, like with the integration account comes for free, right? With one IAC, but with AAC it's not free. So
it's bundled.
It's bundled.
It's
yes.
bundled, but it's a fixed cost, right? So it's fixed cost and bundled. That then we pay like 5,000.
Actually, ICE is more expensive than.
Yeah, we're going to see that, right? I think our
Give
transaction.
you the new one to lower the cost.
Yeah.
Yes, that is
But
correct.
we have to pay for 9 servers, right? For
We changed that, by the way.
They changed that. No, you were not in that meeting, but they changed it.
oh, really? Wow,
yes.
that's great. Yeah, good news.
Later.
Thank you. Sounds good. I think I know you said it keeps coming. Said I did.
No, but it did. They changed that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Adam.
Question from online. They're asking if your logic apps are in different regions.
That's a great question. Now, what we would say is that in
it's
the
all only
yes, in the ISC, what we have is only in one
region.
But remember, one thing that ASC, that while it said that is very important, is when you move to the ASC, your ASC is, if you configure it correctly, is going to be multi-region. And that means that your logic apps are going to be multiple places. Remember that we mentioned that the disaster recovery was one of our challenges, right? Because the
zone redundant.
Sorry about that. There's a difference. It's the same region.
You can host in multiple region, but you have to pay more cost for that, right? So
we have another one. And we are working.
They're working on doing multi-region.
So right now it's a zone redundant. You can have multiple servers available within the zone, and we can do that. And then the integration account, I already said, right? Microsoft came up with a premium integration account in the past. The integration account is bundled with IAC. With AAC, it's a separate cost. And also we have an enterprise scale integration account with we can do the VNet integration, right? So that's, I think it's released recently. I think it supports X12 Edifact connectors as well. And then when we do all these things, like with the IAC to AAC migration, you need to do what are the things, manual thing, like you have to do HTTPS connections or the integration account connections, and then or you have nested logic apps, those connections and all you need to set up manually right after the migration. So everything else is with the export tool, it's already exports, and then it gives you the ARM template that can be used for the DevOps, right, with automated deployments. You want for the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Yeah, I think like we scaled up with multiple orchestras. We already grown beyond that right now. Like we have a lot of integrations with the last 2 years. I think we grown more.
We grew quite a bit. Now, one thing that we came out from this is that we need to have a mindset shift. So change is continuous, right? And we have to embrace it. So we need agility in order for us to deal with continuous change. So this means that we need to be embracing DevOps, SecDevOps, and all those practices. So now we had a hard time doing that ourselves in our organization. Remember how I told you that we become Alcatraz with our change management processes? Well, yeah, so that there's consequences to that, right? Now it was hard for us to start moving towards DevOps and SecDevOps. But what I would say as advice is that if you want to move towards that, first illustrate the benefits through automation. Automation is palpable. People can see it. They can actually feel the cost reducing because you're spending less time doing things, and you doing things that are related to migrations and things, and you're actually spending more time being productive, and people can see. So don't tell, show, don't tell. That's very important, right? Right now we're telling you, which is, I'm violating the rule ourselves, right? But it's very important that you show and don't tell. Last thing is, you're not going to get DevOps and SecDevOps on day 1, day 2, or day 3, or week 5, week 6. You have to achieve your maturity of SecDevOps through continuous iteration and compromise. You have to compromise with the people that you're working with in your organization so they can mature with you and they can see the value of all of these practices. And eventually you start moving on in that maturity. It's continuous improvement. So one thing that we also want to tell you is address things up front. Be in control. Procrastination surrenders control. Lack of control leaves your teams adrift. And the last part, being in control helps you plot the course, which being at the helm, you're charting the course, right? So build, upgrade, and compare roadmaps, especially with Microsoft. Foster in-house knowledge. If you don't have in-house knowledge, this is not going to go anywhere. Conduct POCs, like AG said, conduct technical POCs, have collaborate with Microsoft on your architecture design. We can tell you what architecture is, but that's not going to be valuable to you because your organization is different than ours. Now, develop reusable patterns. That is something that we can tell you. And that is something that is really helpful. Develop something that is reusable so you can identify certain things that you're migrating. Our constant migration made us become more disciplined. So from that perspective, we were able to see that we had to come up with patterns. That's what we're telling you, come up with patterns so you can deal with this. Design with constraints, security, cost, monitorability, and high availability and DR in mind. This is very important. Push for automated testing and automated testing features like we're doing right now, right? We're telling Microsoft, automated testing, please.
Yeah.
And do upfront issue resolution for identified patterns. Remember how I told you to identify your patterns? That way you can actually come to Microsoft and say, here are my patterns. They're not working right. And they're not working because of this connector, this thing, and that thing. That helps you navigate a sea of issues. Just focus on the ones that you care about.
Yeah. And also there is a reference architectures available to kind of adopt, but it's always really good to reach out to Microsoft CSAs to get their input. Say, are we going in the right direction? I think they're coming for free, right? So Microsoft.
I just want to mention something really important and emphasize it over here.
Yeah.
Please make sure you have good connection with the Microsoft team. It helps a lot because we also had excellent relationship with them. We give them access for PG and the product group and help them all the time. And sometimes engineers who work on the code, they work with them on problems and help moving their support ticket very fast.
Yeah.
Please be really good with them and work with us because it's not, you cannot be angry on something and expect things to happen.
Yeah, but the sales pitch coming here. So.
Work with us. Let us understand your problem.
Yes.
For us to help you.
So watch out this as well.
Yeah.
So this is very important, right? Which is
that's what I said. Sales pitch coming here.
Right? So CSA engage, right? Engage your cloud solution architects in Microsoft, right? So go ahead and ask.
Well, I had a previous question related to the previous slide.
Yes.
Was you had HA and DR in mind. So Jay was asking, do you do regular DR testing with different regions after you've migrated?
Different regions, I think we do a DR testing every year, right? But not like with multiple regions in Azure, right? But
right.
all our systems we had to go through the DR.
Right, and we're implementing a DR strategy as well, so that we can see how we're going to be doing that. We're redesigning it based on Azure and our SLAs.
Well, what's DR?
Disaster recovery. DR is disaster
What
recovery.
if I think I covered in the beginning, right? When it highly available means like it's always
is
available.
Yeah.
Disaster recovery, something goes wrong, like how do we recover, right? So
how do you recover from a disaster? That's what disaster recovery is. Yes.
Given your workflows, VNet integration, was VNet integration the compelling factor for choosing standard over consumption, and also what's the
No, I mean,
no.
So, we'll get to that. So there's logic apps that basically are floating on the internet, right? And you're going to be charged for how much you're actually using them, which is basically what is the term of consumption. Now, when we said we're going to be doing our logic apps in a secure manner, we were not going to be allowing our logic apps to be floating on the internet, right? Because those logic apps might be protected by a SaaS, a shared access signature that is very easy for people to just send an email and leak them, right? So from that perspective, we went to the ISC, which is an integration service environment that gave you a VNet with 4 subnets where you could have your logic apps. So that was basically like building your consumption logic apps right inside of a VNet, right? VNet integrating your logic apps, if you will, right? Now, that ISC itself is what is actually being retired. And now if you want to do something like putting your logic apps within a VNet, you got to do it inside of an ASC, right? So that's what we have been discussing here. So a standard logic app is a different logic app that started going up, they started being designed as well, it said. When the logic apps team learned quite a bit of what they had done with the previous version of logic apps, and they started working on the next version of logic apps, and that was logic app standard. Logic app standard you could potentially, and Microsoft, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could potentially take your logic apps and take all of that, and you could run them on AWS if you wanted to, because this could be containerized. No, not anymore.
Yeah, I think we don't want to go.
But anyway, we won't go that deep. But standard itself is different than consumption. Yeah. It was the next version of that.
Yeah. So with the one more thing, like with the VNet integration, so you have to really, it's an organization requirement, right? If your organization is not required to run on the VNet, like you don't have to go through all these difficulties, like setting up VNet subnets, and then we have to host within the VNet and all, right? It's obviously secured, but it comes with some additional effort, right? And also additional cost.
Just want to mention also VNet is also you don't need ASE only. There is another shared option. But
okay,
you want an ACE for another thing, for security.
We wanted ACE for security
stuff as well.
Correct.
An isolated system.
Yes, that you're right. You're right. We wanted to isolate our system. We wanted to do it for security. So security requirements made us do this. So last one, well, a few things on CSS Engage. We established a cadence with Microsoft that helped us a lot, right? So we talk to them, every week or so. We started engage. They help us to engage with the product groups, as well it said, right? That way we work with issues up front. We monitor open cases and we can accelerate them, right? So you don't have to be waiting on people to basically be dealing with level 1 when you're dealing with your cases. There's better migration tools. Again, we talk about this with what Wagner was doing, right? 70% of, the code is good, right? There's your responsibility and accountability, right? So there's responsibility with us, there's responsibility with Microsoft, and we're both accountable, right? And this enables better work and resource estimation. We know better how much work something is going to take and how much resources or how many resources that we're going to require in order for us to do things.
So, and also they also help us with the architecture decisions, right? Mm-hmm. And then if they don't know, I think they need additional groups, like, recommend maybe, like, if you think, like, when you looked at the key APM is a different group, function of different group, like SQL is different group, and Logic Apps is different group within Microsoft, right? So all big ones, right? if they need help, I think they can go and where we need really help, right? They'll go and get them and also help us with that.
Right. So last thing, right? We're missing the testing automation still, right? If you see the testing automation, please contact Microsoft.
Yeah.
Now that's what we call partner accountability, right? So we are accounting for that, right? And we're pushing for that. We really, really need that automation. Please help us out.
The end of the year, right? So you promised us.
Almost
framework,
coming. Okay,
it's ready.
you heard well. It's almost coming. Yes.
What automation is it that's lacking? What specific like?
It's remember how somebody asked us about unit testing?
Yeah,
Logic App standards. You have to, how do you test Logic App standard with automated testing, right? Yeah.
Yes, the Logic Apps is what is actually missing, right? So because you can unit test your app services, you can unit test your function apps. Remember that's what we said, that anything that was complex and we needed to test, we move it into a function app, because then we'll be able to build our automated automation testing and feel confident with them.
Yeah, I think Microsoft is getting there. I think we are not missing that tool anyways right now. So we have built our own kind of tool that to test it.
But don't tell them, because we want the automation framework.
I know we want to go with the standard.
We
We don't want any custom solutions.
It's almost out. Okay, so quick thing about the classic modern challenges, right? Leaving the past behind. So third parties are still stuck with legacy technologies, practices, or both. We lack deprecation strategies to help us say, hey, we're not going to longer support integrations that are doing this, right? There's a shortage of people that have the required skill set to be working on certain things, right? There's rigid processes that demand manual intervention, especially in our case, right? Organizational structures are also in place that are going to make things difficult for you, right? You're going to inherit legacy network and environments, and these are going to have heavy implications on what you're doing. And finally, your platforms are going to be shifting. So these are challenges that you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
I saw a question popping up, but I couldn't read it.
Any challenges testing the failure cases for your workflows?
Negative scenarios. I think so. We told like we have our own kind of test framework we created. Like what are the complex scenarios? We tested those through like positive and negative scenarios as well. And we don't do that for all the integrations. When we have a complex critical integrations or and also business critical integrations, right? Those are the only things we build our own things. Other things are all manual, right? You can drop a file, goes fine, and then if a drop file transformation fine. So those are all okay. But
right at this point in time, we're not boiling the ocean. Anything that is critical, that's what we're automating. Right. Once that we have this, it will be easier for us to start automating everything.
Yeah.
That's what we would like to do.
Yeah, and also the shortage of people with the required skill set is one of the things that it's going to be funny if you, I don't know, maybe John might know it, right? So when we wanted to move to Microsoft, right, the Azure, right, we had almost 160 employees from our, they passed AZ900. They attended training, and then we did we didn't have that many developers. I think even a lot of people got very interested, and then the organization wide there was a lot of interest, and then we had a lot of certifications. I think the skill set also, right, it's not difficult to learn. There are a lot of resources available, and then there's a training available. It's not that expensive.
Correct. Remember that we said when we were telling you some of our lessons learned, foster in-house knowledge, right? This is very important.
Yeah. And also when you go and talk about hey, what is a Logic App? What is I think most of our organization employees, they know what Logic App is, what function is, what APM is. Most of the product team business, they knows what exactly we are talking about, right? That way they did AZ900. So and then at least it's one of the good thing. And I'm going to cover this the platform readiness checklist. So we talked about document legacy integrations. It's very important to document the legacy integrations, right? Sometimes we are kind of running the integrations for years. It's no issue, don't touch it, right? So we don't touch if there's no issue, right? And then we don't have a documentation, people leave, and then it's very important. Some of we burnt in a bad way. Some of the integrations we didn't have kind of proper documentations. We have to really identify integration patterns. I already mentioned several times, right? You identify what are the integrations patterns you require for your organization, right? Is it going to be always go through certain patterns, and then it will make things easier for you if you have to go to the next level, right? It's always follow the standards. And then conduct POCs, evaluate. I already said, like, don't take Microsoft for granted, right? So not everything goes like, test as always, like, maybe the product might be great, but you might have some of your corporate network issues. Maybe that might be able to do some tweaks, some add firewall rules, right? That's very important. And then identify skill gaps. I said, like, we talked about platforms, like, with the app services plan, kind of going with the 88%, 92% memory, and then we had a CPU issue. So we had to distribute across multiple app service plans, right? And then snapboard exhaustion is another example. So we didn't have enough knowledge to do that, like, when we had the issue 2 years ago, then only we found this out. Yeah.
Just one mention about don't take Microsoft for granted. It's sometimes our developers see certain scenarios based on certain things, use cases, but your use case is totally different. So when you use our product, you find it, oh, it's not 100% like you want. And this is where we need your feedback. And this is where the communication with CSAs and PG say, look at this. And they come to meeting actually we want to listen. They sit down, say, oh, now we understand. And they go and they change.
And
we change our product based on your needs. And we need that. And that's where the communication is very important, because now the product will be shaped based on what you need, not just our vision. We have a specific vision, but we need your feedback.
And it is true. We have sit down with different product groups ourselves. Yeah. They have asked for our feedback. We have told them what we want. That's why we tell you that one of the things that you want to do is you want to be in control, right? So reach out to Microsoft, talk to them, help shape the product so that it actually does what you need it to do. If you don't, then you're going to be facing what we did, right? Which is things are not working entirely. Because as Wawed said, getting a 100% cool coverage is very difficult. And like AG said as well, even if they have 100% coverage, that doesn't take into account your environment, right? You need to be testing your own environment. So like they said, I think it's in the military, trust but verify.
Yeah. Absolutely, I think that's a very good point. I think thanks, Walid and Ori, right? So we achieved 99.993 success rate. I keep bragging about it a lot of times, right? Because it's a good achievement, right? Because even Microsoft was really appreciative about this, the level. And then we talked about comparing connector functionality, right? The file connectors, it works in BizTalk is not the same way it works in Azure, right? In BizTalk, there are a lot of functionalities. It's it's on-prem. They can do a lot of functionalities with a very easy kind of connection with the integration with the file connectors. So file connectors, like if you have a 0-byte file, it wipes out like BizTalk, but Azure doesn't, right? And then if you if you drop a file, it kind of picks up in a second, right? But Azure, we have to really careful, when you create the file in the folder, it picks up. But when somebody creates a file in some other folder and drop it here, that doesn't work, because it's you have a created, what is the created time, what is file change time. There are a lot of things there. You need to be really careful, like how your business is using, right? So some of the business, we have to do the workaround. We have to create a recurrence trigger, so that it kind of polls every second to go take that, right? So those are all the things you need to really consider. And then you need to review the environment setup and ensure the parity with the production. You need to ensure that we have a proper testing environment, right? And then obviously some trading partners may not have testing environment. That's okay, right? And then we have to review the network connectivity. You already talked about. We have to have a proper test environment. Sample data is very critical for the developers, right? The developers, when you onboard all the developers, if you don't have a proper test data, what they're going to test, right? They'll say, they'll be waiting. So you need to ensure when we do this, we have a documentation ready, we have a test cases ready, and then we onboard people. That way they have everything ready, right? That's very easy to support. And then configure alerts as wherever possible, right? So we have alerts for everything. If the CPU app service plan CPU goes up, we have alerts. So we have any logic app fail, we have alert. So we have alert everywhere, right? To set up, we have automated scale up and scale down, right? So with IAC, AC, we also set up rules for that, right? Auto scaling. When there is a volume of messages goes up, we have auto scaling available, right? So we do that. Still, we have alerts for the two. We need to really know, hey, if there is this really scale up happen, right? Why did it happen? Somebody kind of processing one time, like, some user kind of triggered a, like, bunch of messages, like, it created a 5 million transactions. And then it was kind of running for 1.5 days, right? So that's a user error, right? So we'll go and plug those issues, and the next time it doesn't happen, right? So this is very important to understand. I think
yes, we're close to the end, but really, in the end, there's no end, right? The journey continues. Change is always up ahead, but we decide to keep ourselves in the front, like we have said. And while we're dreamers that we're longing for a better tomorrow, we're also technologists, right? We all are, and we will find solutions to make that a reality. Thank you. Questions? Yes, we're open for questions.
You mainly utilize to do the migration? You suggest maybe Azure Data Factory?
Yes, that's one of the things that we're using. We're using Azure Data Factory. Now, keep in mind though that our integration, like we talked about here, our integration team has been heavily using the ISE, the ASE, and all that. But we also have a data analytics team that are also doing some of these migrations, and they heavily use ADF.
Yeah.
Right. And they're also very in touch with Microsoft to understand the architecture and the things that we need to be doing from that perspective.
Questions? Now's a good time.
After 5 minutes, each question $10.
Yes.
So I've done some Terraform work myself. I don't know the situation. You were talking about 3 hours. So was that a lot of network nodes?
Oh no, that was not it. Because you could think that, right? And Microsoft here is here to correct me, right? It was not that. It was not that you would just send it. Think about it this way: when you're basically using RN templates or you're using Bicep, you're basically passing the end state that you want to RM, to Azure, right? And then Azure is the one that is going to figure out what are the deltas that need to be applied, right? But in this particular case, it was not that there was a lot of deltas that needed to be changed, because it was just a little bit of like, hey, I want this small change, right? But that small change required things to happen in the infrastructure, right? And that infrastructure was what was actually taking 3 hours, right? It's not the network calls or that were happening.
Sometimes integration account, like ISC environment itself is real difficult, right? Sometimes when you restart the ISC, it will take 10 minutes to come back. Sometimes it will take 1.5 hours.
Yes, 1 hour.
You really don't know why it's 1.5 hours, and then we'll open a Microsoft ticket. Hey,
we wake up at person.
That's right. Just so you know, right? We gotta go ahead.
Yeah, it depends, right? How we use it. Like I think what Jorge mentioned is about the ISC. I think you should not worry about that, because that platform is going to go away, and then it's not even allowed to create ISC anymore, right? You can't even.
No, you cannot create an ISC anymore.
Yes.
No, and you're not going to feel the same thing with the ASC.
Yes.
The ASC is very different, which is why it's good that they're moving in that direction. Because I'll tell you this: when we were troubleshooting something in the ISC, we had a case A open with Microsoft, right? And it needed to be dealt with immediately, right?
Yeah.
So they told me that I needed to do something, right? And I did that at 11 p.m., right? But because that thing was going to take about 3 to 4 hours, I went to sleep, right? And then I woke up at 4 a.m. to be able to get the next call from them, right? And be able to troubleshoot.
And if you create a survey that you are supporting 24/7, right? They have a kind of handover, and the next, we went through all of those stuff. So, John has a question.
Yes, question.
And just by the way, the ASC used to be that way in 2016 and 17.
Oh yes.
It used to be like I deployed a very large scale application that tied back into an AS400, into a DB2 database on AS400. And it had to be deployed internally in an environment. And what you got to think of is everything that it takes to make an app service run has to be deployed every time. That 3 to 4 hours was instantiating the networks and the switches and all of that in real time.
Yes,
it's way faster now.
It's way faster now. Keep in mind that one great comment there. One thing to keep in mind, and again, I have Microsoft here to say no, but back then we're talking about the ASC version 1, version 2, and the ISC in the background had an instance of the ASC.
Yeah.
So
correct.
we're basically dealing with the same thing.
Yeah.
So right now, that's the reason why we're moving to the ASC v3, because it's still the same, backend.
It's a
right?
simplified and abstracted for the user, but it's
Actually,
backend.
See version 1
One.
and 2, they're also part of this retirement.
Correct.
Yeah. But they have an easy button right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, they do have an easy button. The
All
ISC,
the services.
Yes.
Button except
except for this one. Yes.
because
Thanks to Microsoft.
Yeah, it was challenging because
We had another
we-
1 year migration to go.
we develop software too, right? I mean, all of us, like Satya said, right? Every single company right now is a software development company, whether we like it or not, right? So we all know how it is to be dealing with deadlines that have been imposed to us, right? So we understand what the Logic Apps team has to go through, and we have to say kudos and a lot of appreciation to our Logic App PGs and contacts, right? For example, Wagner and DVI.
Yeah,
Ram,
Wagner,
right? So big shout out to them. They put up with us every in a cadence, right?
David, right? So for SAP,
Yes,
twice a week.
sometimes twice a week, right? I was going to say every 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
sometimes twice a week.
So I can tell you, like, I'm really thankful to all the solution architects I worked with. Really great help. And then I supported, integration. I recently moved to data analytics, so I can support leading, data integration. But I've been supporting Azure integration services from the beginning, right? I went through all the BizTalk, all the Azure. We got a really excellent support CSS, and also I'm kind of continuously annoy them, keep asking them questions, keep involving them. We had a regular cadence with them, so that way we understand more. We did a POC, so we kind of for the AC, when the announcement came the next month, I hosted a AC environment in POC, and then we started a POC immediately, and then we looked at all these connectors, tested, and then opened maybe 35 Microsoft cases, right? 35 cases.
Another thing about the good relationship, the CSAs as well, they can get you the news before it happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
had some insider information.
They knew before
They knew
time,
before time.
before the official time,
Yeah.
under NDA.
So you're not supposed to say that. So
That's right.
Say that, okay.
yeah.
That's right. So we freaked out in private.
Yeah, I think we started looking at it, and then that's what I already explained, right?
Drinking that week.
POC,
That day I was tested,
Yeah.
to
Test all the
not
connectors.
drinking at all, right? I have never had alcohol. That was the first time I was tempted to have it.
Yeah. So we have also the rapid action. What is the weekly call or monthly call we have with Sachin, right? So we also monitor the tickets, right? How many tickets are open for advisory, how many are real production. So we will not have a real we I don't know. We have maybe 2 or 3 production issues, maybe maximum in 6 months, or we have a lot of advisory.
We brought you the VP of Azure as well, remember?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
That's right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had a lot of FaceTime with different people. Yes.
Because I told you that they have to bring a VP to bring me out of safe house.
But we were not going to say that because we're under NDA. So
Yeah, exactly. Because it was very challenging for us to go and explain the business, right? Why we are doing what.
Sometimes for them to explain to management what's happening,
yes.
and why you're doing this. You need somebody on top
Yeah.
level to
Yeah.
talk to top management and tell them about this.
The CIO is calling me immediately and then say, let's discuss. What?
But it's above everybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
Any more questions?
yeah. Any more questions?
Conscious of time.
Thanks, Adam. We're really passionate about talking.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, AG.
Thanks, guys. So who learned something? Anyone learn something? Okay. Yeah. All right. Then it's a successful evening, or at least in my book it is. Learn something new. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for the folks online. Really appreciate everyone being here. We'll be here again next month, second Tuesday of each month. We have, has anyone heard of semantic kernel? Anyone know what that is? Couple of hands. Yeah, it's an AI thing. Yeah. AI thing. Yeah. So we're going to have a presentation on semantic kernel because everyone seems to care about it for some reason. I don't know. So we'll be here for that next month. Hope to see you all here. Thanks for coming out. Oh, take some pizza. Thank you all.
Thank
See you
you.
next month.
Thank you.